Jaime Barrera. Today, sales taxes. The state of Texas charges 6.25% sales tax. So every time you buy something, you pay a sales tax. A few exceptions on food, but that's uncooked food. You go to the restaurant, they charge you for the labor because you're eating food, you're not eating the spoons, and you're certainly not eating the plates. So they're charging you labor. It doesn't make sense. Then when this idiot that we have as a president added tariffs are another form of sales tax. So here in Texas, we pay sales tax on a sales tax. So something that used to cost $100 that because of Trump's tariffs, although right now finally the Supreme Court did something that wasn't so corrupt, because this is the most corrupt Supreme Court in my lifetime. And I actually like constitutional law. I'm an attorney. And there are very few other Supreme Courts, Doris, that are corrupt this one. I won't say all of them, but there are several members there that, they're for sale. I don't care what anybody says. They're bought and paid for, and they're not bought and paid for by the poor people. So anyhow, and it's frustrating because I've called my state representative, I've called my state senator, I've emailed them and asked them to, fight to lower the sales tax. The megas are always saying, let's lower property taxes. I have no problems with lowering property taxes, but why is it that they're never willing to lower the taxes they collect? They have billions of dollars in surplus, but they will not lower the sales tax. Why is that? The gasoline tax. I think Texas has a 20 cents sales tax on gasoline. 3 other states, I believe it's 3, have already done away with the gasoline tax, at least for the time being, because of the cost of gasoline. So, while the megas, the Republicans, the Greg Abbotts, the Paul Betancourts, they claim we're helping people pay less taxes. That's bullshit. If they want to help people pay less taxes, lower the sales tax. Instead of 6.25%, which is what the state collects, lower it to 5% or 5.25%. 1 penny on every dollar. 1 penny. While it doesn't seem like a lot, it is. If you were to keep all your sales receipts and you started adding up all your sales taxes, you would find that you easily pay over $1,000 in sales taxes. And that's somebody that doesn't spend a lot of money and doesn't buy a lot of things. If you buy a lot of things, if you like to splurge, you buy a new car, you buy a used car. There's a tax, a sales tax. Why won't the state lower their taxes? Everyone should be calling their state representative, their state senator, and telling them lower the sales taxes. Let's make this a state with less tax burden. Greg Abbott, Paul Betancourt, and Dan Patrick like to brag about low state taxes. That's bullshit again, because it's not a low state taxes state. It is a very high taxes state. When you put everything together, Texas is not at the bottom. It's very close to the top. So that's it for today. Hasta luego. Manuel Barrera. Meme. Bye.